It's been 4 explosive days in the High Court in Pretoria. A friend of the late Senzo Meyiwa has been on the stand, giving his perspective of what happened on that fateful night in 2014 when the soccer sensation was fatally shot. The matter has now been postponed to Monday, that will be the 8th of May, on account of accused numbers 1 and 2's lawyer feeling under the weather suddenly earlier today. But inside court at the time was my colleague, that's eNCA reporter Manqoba Mchunu, following those proceedings. He's back now and he's with me in the studio. Good afternoon, Manqoba. Welcome back. And I was wondering whether you had anything to do with the postponement because you wanted a long weekend. But you are here now. You didn't want a long weekend. On a serious note, there was a bit of cross-examination this morning that happened as a continuation from yesterday by the defense lawyer for accused number 1 and 2 in this case, with Thwala still in the dock there. What happened?
Indeed, Pratian. So you recall that yesterday where we left off was the beginning of cross-examination by the lawyers for accused 1 and 2, who had essentially just started asking Thwala about what had happened in the lead up to that visit to Makhumalo's house in Vosloorus. And they were speaking about when they had fetched Tumelo Madlala from the bus stop where he had been coming from Durban, and then from there heading to Kelly Khumalo's home on that day. So he picked up this morning as far as the arrival at Makhumalo's house. When did they arrive? Who was there? And most importantly, when did Longwe Thwala arrive there at Makhumalo's house? And also just the details that happened before the shooting happened. He was painstakingly going through those minor details like, okay, so when you went inside the house, where did you sit? Confirm where you sat. And also in terms of, you said that at some point you had gotten out of the house. When exactly did you come back? Was the door locked when you came back? And of course, the moment when those intruders allegedly came into the house, what had happened then when they came inside? Did you see them coming into the house? Was the door locked? Was the gate locked? So those were just some of the specifics that he was asking Thwala about. But also importantly, what happened when these intruders walked into the house? What exactly did they say to those that were inside the house? What were their exact words? And I guess Thwala said that he can't, really say what they said. It was in the heat of the moment. It all happened so fast. But what they demanded is cell phones and money from those who were inside the house. But he was quizzed more about that moment when they saw the intruders, the firearms that they were carrying, as well as the knives that they were carrying. And I think sometimes it's a bit of a difficult time just trying to say exactly what type of a firearm he saw, whether it was a knife or not. But what he says, Brother, is that they thought initially that it was somebody from the neighbor that was actually coming into this house. But take a listen to what he had to say.
Your story is that the first intruder to enter the house carried a firearm or a gun, correct?
Angithi usho-ke ubufakazi bakho ukuthi owokuqala owangena endlini wayephethe isibhamu.
Yebo.
Yes.
And from your vantage point where you were seated, could you see that firearm as soon as that person enters the kitchen?
Kwindawo owuhlezi kuyona ingabe leso sibhamu leso wasibona nje kanye ngenkathi nje umbona noma lo muntu engena ekitchen?
Hayi ukuthi ngasibona ngesikhathi engena. Mina ngabona ukuthi ushuka umuntu la lo mnyango lo ukuthi lo ade ngikusho lo ungakusona umnyango. I think it's like uphumele passage. Ngikhumbula ukuthi ngabuka uSenzo. Ngitshe mhlawumbe mina umuntu omakhelwane or something angazi nami sangicabangiswa yini lokho.
Not that I saw a person coming into the kitchen door. You remember there's this opening that I described here. It's not a door, it's an opening where I just saw someone appearing from there. And then I looked at Senzo because I was under this impression that maybe it's a neighbor. And I also don't know why I thought like that.
And then emva kwesikhathi esincane nje futhi ngibuka uSenzo ila ngathi mengibuka khona ngabona ukuthi lo muntu uphethe isibhamu.
Okay. And after a short while, while looking at Senzo, that's when I then saw that, but this person has got a firearm.
Okay, during this cross-examination this morning, before the adjournment happened, Thwala was also asked about his relationship with Longwe Thwala.
In fact, I mean, there were a lot of questions as far as Longwe Thwala is concerned from the defense lawyers. Of course, it's not only because of the fact that they're both Thwalas, but the question was whether or not they knew each other before the 26th of October, whether there was any sort of relationship between the two of them. Of course, we know, Pretend, that Longwe Thwala was Zandi Khumalo's boyfriend, and he had also come to the house on invitation of Zandi Khumalo, and we understand that he had also eaten supper that night. And Mthokozisi Thwala saying that it was actually the first time that he had met Longwe Thwala. Prior to that, there was no incident or there was no meeting at all between the two of them. He didn't talk much to Longwe Thwala on that night because when Longwe arrived, they already had supper by then. He just went straight and sat next to Zandi, and I think he also talked about the fact that there was not really much of a conversation between them. He just answered or was responding to some of the discussions that were happening, but there was no real introduction that was done between the two of them. So saying that it was the first time that he saw Longwe Thwala, but of course the big question was around Longwe Thwala's involvement in that scuffle. We recall, Pratyan, that yesterday we heard from the state trying to rectify that statement that was made to the police back in 2014, where it was said that, according to Mthokozisi Thwala, Longwe Thwala had let go of a firearm during that scuffle, let go of a firearm that the intruder was holding before getting outside or running away from the house. But in his testimony in court, he said that Longwe Thwala had run away and pushed one of these intruders to run away. In fact, he was the first person to run away from the house. And so the issue is that, they were trying to establish whether there was a relationship between the two of them, or whether, Mthokozisi Thwala could just merely be protecting Longwe Thwala in all of this. But take a listen, Patan, to how all of that unfolded.
Now, Longwe arrives, he sits where you have pointed out in the exhibit. I'm not going to regurgitate that again. Have you previously met Longwe Thwala before the date of the 26th of October 2014?
Wasefika ke uLongwe wahlala kuyena le ndawo oyikhombileka ngeke ngiyiphindeke ngabe ngaphambilini kwaleli langa la nge-26 ka-October 2014 wake wahlangana naye uLongwe?
Cha, ngase ngiqala umbona.
No, never. That was I was seeing him for the first time.
Mthokozisi Thwala, they're responding to some of the questions during cross-examination today. The trial will resume on Monday, the 8th of May. Thank you very much, Manqoba Mchunu, for that update.